Okay, I'm really tired right now. I'm not really sure if I should do this right now, but I gotta do it because I'm gonna be leaving soon, and I've got some stuff to do, got some stuff to buy, got some bags to pack, and all that crap. And honestly, here's the thing: I'm not sure why I watched this movie. I really don't. Um, because A, nobody really cares about it. I'm not sure anybody's really gonna watch this review. B, it's not that good, and I really don't know why I watched it. Like initially, I thought the movie was gonna be kind of okay because it was released in 1987, six. I think around that time it stars Harrison Ford, Sigourney Weaver, Melanie Griffith, who I don't really know much about, but still, and I don't know, like Joan Cusack plays the best friend like she always does in most 80s movies in general, and it was directed by Mike Nichols, and I'm pretty sure he has something to do with the screenplay as well, because he's one of those guys, and I love Mike Nichols. I think he's great, even though I'm not a fan of The Graduate for, personal reasons. I totally understand why people see him as one of the great comedic writers, and before when he was doing movies, even then, I'm a huge fan of the stuff he was doing with Elaine May. There's this comedy album that I listen to once in a while. I think it's called An Evening with May and Nichols, or Elaine May and Nichols. I'm not Mike Nichols. I'm not really sure. I know he's really good, and from what I saw of the film, the first few minutes, and maybe even the trailers, I thought the movie was gonna be similar to Broadcast News or, The Accidental Tourist. At best, it was gonna be this it's gonna be a film about authentic romanticism and sentimentality in the modern age. Or, at worst, it would be a movie for suburban middle-aged couples on date nights that they go on once a week. Unfortunately, while it isn't terrible, it kind of walks the very thin line between the extremes. I want to get through the flaws first because I do feel like the movie's more flawed than well done, but honestly, I just didn't like it. I'm just gonna go through this very quickly. It's I know this is a very shallow nitpick, but the Carly Simon music, it's the kind of music that ruins these kinds of movies. Like, the one thing that I don't like about Broadcast News, which is one of my favorite movies ever made, is the music. That whimsical, overly saccharine music that just ruins the authenticity that the film's trying to go for. And this film's kind of the same. The adult contemporary crap that Carly Simon is giving us in this movie is so... it's kind of gut-wrenching, and there are just some really weird music choices. Like, there are scenes where it's clearly not a tense scene, but they use like some tense goblin music from Suspiria, and some of the editing is really awkward and just too sudden. Like, most of the sex scenes are cut way too fast, though later on that kind of goes away. And Melanie Griffith, I'm not sure. Maybe she's great in other movies. I really don't know. But even if there's an excuse for her, like, Marilyn Monroe whisper that she does in this whole movie, maybe it's trying to convey her vulnerability. Maybe it's trying to emphasize that this is how she grew up. People told her to be this way, and she's trying to get out of that. Even though, even at the end, she's still speaking the same way, so it doesn't make any sense when the redemption is done. But really, the main problem I have with her acting was her facial expressions. She always has the same expression throughout the movie. It's that wide-eyed, totally blank face, and her mouth is kind of crooked this way, or maybe that way, I'm not sure. And it's so unbearably dull. It's such a dull movie, and speaking of being dull, that's really the main problem of this movie. The film kind of just shoves in the main conflict, the liar revealed plot line, and the resolution for that liar revealed plot line within the last 25 minutes. All of that happens in the last 25 minutes. This film is an hour and 53 minutes long. So, What does that say? Well, that means within the first hour and a half, almost nothing fucking happens when it comes to conflicts or whatever. The first hour and a half is beyond dull. And sure, it's not like the whole movie's about, these conflicts and these resolutions and whatnot. The first hour and a half does have some very authentic portrayals of relationships between the character that Alec Baldwin plays and the character that Melanie Griffith plays. Alec Baldwin is caught cheating, and the way they deal with that relationship is very mature and is handled in a very sophisticated way. And the main character's determined attitude to get a proper job and stop being a secretary and actually get an office job and whatnot. I like that factor of the movie. Unfortunately, I don't see the motivation besides the fact that she just wants to be a better person, even though they don't really establish that well. Really, there's nothing interesting going on. They kind of, they reference to the fact that she's a determined character, and they reference, and there are multiple scenes where they really flesh out the relationship between Alec Baldwin's character and the Melanie Griffith's character. Even though it goes nowhere, it just ends in a very mature way, which is kind of appreciative, I guess. And I guess Harrison Ford is kind of good, but still, there's no major conflict. There's no drive. There's nothing going on when it comes to how stories should work. They simply reference things and flesh out things that really don't result in a really tangible idea within the storyline. And really, just this hasty structure of just forcing all the main conflict and all the resolutions within the last 25 minutes, it honestly makes this movie feel like a primetime TV movie for bored housewives. And I know that kind of sounds mean. Shout out to the bored housewives. They're probably much more interesting people, but good God, this is bad. However, like I said, the film's not bad. The film's not terrible. I don't like it, but there are certain things within this movie that I can see other people liking. The film is, in fact, quite funny. Mike Nichols' touch is definitely all over the movie. His sense of humor that I've seen and heard with his acts that he did with Elaine May is all over this film. It does have that Woody Allen-ish, James L. Brooks' touch. There's just moments of very quiet humor that doesn't really manifest the movie to the point where it kind of gets annoying. Obviously, you have movies like Naked Gun where the humor is supposed to manifest the film, but when it comes to this movie, when a movie that's clearly trying to somewhat establish a serious theme, the humor should be more quiet. It shouldn't have such a blunt presence, and that he does a very good job at that. And there are just some nice visual gags. They do stray away from just some, half-assed dialogue comedy. There's this great scene where Melanie Griffith's character is just pushing this cart filled with dim sum, and, the steam is coming out, and her face gets all wet, and that's a very good visual gag. Not like, it's not like a Mel Brooks visual gag, but it's funny. And the acting is all around good. Like I said, Melanie Griffith, I find her dull, but the rest of the cast is amazing. Harrison Ford does exactly what he does in every single movie. He just kind of shows up and does his thing. He's basically Han Solo and Indiana Jones without the whip and the gun, but what he does is solid. There's no denying that. And Sigourney Weaver, it's one of the strangest performances I've seen of hers. Around this time she was in Aliens, and this is so different from that, and which kind of proves that she's a really good actress. She sort of is strangely despicable and charming at the same time, and it's just this weird balance that she just perfectly hits. It's weird, but it's good. It's a good kind of weird. And again, the most underrated actress, at least the most underrated American actress of the 80s, Joan Cusack, playing, once again, the best friend of Melanie Griffith's main character. She's so underrated because she's good in every single scene, in every single movie that I've seen of hers. And she's really good. I'm just going to end it there. And I will say this. The story structure is not cliche. And not just because, the film just pushes all those main conflicts and resolutions in the last bit. No, the resolution is done in a very mature way. The liar reveal plot line still happens, but the resolution happens with such believable acceptance and with such speed that it doesn't really, it doesn't indulge into the lie revealed plotline too much. Because most movies, they would have that scene where a sad pop song would play, and you would see these scenes where, maybe these two characters are kind of separated because they have this major conflict because the lie revealed plotline, and one of them would be, leaning like this in the corner, and the other one would be looking out the window like this, and that sad song would be playing, and it would be just so painful and cliche, but they don't do that. They don't. They just go right to the resolution, and it's kind of refreshing. Mike Nichols obviously understands what's cliche and what's not. And I do feel like the relationship that they kind of establish between the main character and Alec Baldwin's character is extremely maturely done. It's kind of realistically harsh, but it's quiet enough to be believable. And Harrison Ford's character's relationship with the Melanie Griffith character is also charming. Not the greatest thing in the world. It's not goddamn Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn, but it's good. So overall, even though I didn't like it, I can see why people could like it. And here's the thing. It's less broadcast news and more Pretty Woman. And as a person who thinks Pretty Woman is kind of mediocre, it kind of makes sense that I wouldn't like this movie. But hey, a lot of people like Pretty Woman, and I can see how people could like this movie as much as that film. So, whatever. That's about it. I'm probably going to go to sleep, or maybe eat some carrots, or stay hydrated. Hydration is very important. Everybody should know that. Bye.